Hey everybody, welcome to another Better PHP video. Today we're going to be looking at PHP interfaces. We'll understand what interfaces are, why we need to use it, how to create them, and also take a look at a very simple example of how we can practically use interface in our programs. Now first let's understand what interface is. Interface is something that allows us to create a certain set of rules that yourself and all the other developers need to follow when you're using that said class. Now we all know how we can have one class that extends another class. Similarly, we can have a class that would extend an interface. The only difference being, instead of saying class A extends class B or interface B, you would say class A would implement the interface. Now let's take a look at a simple interface. Here we have the vehicle interface, and as you can see, you wouldn't call this a class vehicle interface, you would use the keyword interface. And what you see inside are three methods. You see set engine, set body, and test vehicle. Now what you'll notice here is that we do not define how these methods need to function. We have no logic inside any of these methods, but all we have is the definition of these three functions. And note that all these three need to be defined as public. Now, if we look at this interface, what this says is that these are the three methods that need to be used by any class that wishes to extend, or in this case, implement this interface. So these are the rules, which means, now this means if I'm writing a program for a manufacturing unit and I have the ability to build different kinds of vehicles, I need to have certain rules that are defined. So anytime a developer tries to create or tries to construct a vehicle, there has to be certain rules that needs to be followed. That is why we have these rules. So let's take this real-time example and I can explain to you how this interface is used. So I have a class called the build car class. Now as you can see here, as I mentioned before, build car is a class which implements, not extends, but implements vehicle interface. When you say implements, you're basically extending the interface. So this means this class, which is a custom class that I'm writing, needs to follow the rules set by vehicle interface. What are the rules? The rules again are set engine, set body, and test vehicle. That means I need to define, or I need to make sure that when I'm constructing a vehicle, which is a car here, I need to have all these three methods. And in my index page, you can see that I am creating a new car. And let's call myself a developer 1. And I've been tasked to basically write the program to build a car. So what I would do is I would write this class called build car, and I would use this class to ultimately display the vehicle. And because I'm building a car, which is a vehicle, I have certain rules that are defined by the factory. And that's why I'm using or implementing this interface. And as you can see, I'm setting the engine, I'm setting the body, and I'm testing the vehicle, and finally I'm printing the vehicle. So let's take a look and see what this code does. And if you look here, we are getting some information that is being printed onto the page. And if we look at the code, it says we are printing the engine, the body, and whether it was tested. And if you see here, I'm setting the tested is okay, and I'm printing that the tested is okay. Now, why did we do this? I could have just not used this, and I would probably still get the same output. The reason I'm doing this is because, now let's say I'm another developer 2. And now the factory is asking me to write a program to create a motorbike. Now what I would do is I would end up creating a new class. Let's create a new class, call it as motorbike.php, and let me copy the same code here. Maybe just change a few things. Yeah, I'll call this as motorbike, and let me not write this implements vehicle. I will have everything the same. I will just change this to maybe 1000 cc and maybe just 200 horsepower. Set body, I would say bike assembled, and tested OK. All of this is fine. Now let's say I copy the same thing, but this would be a motorbike. I'll call this a bike, and I will call this a motorbike. Now what do you think would happen? Now if I run this code, we should be able to see both the car and the motorbike. So let's see what happens. I'll just give it a little bit of space, and let me go ahead and print this, and it works just fine. Now the reason we need interface is, now let's say the second developer forgets to test the vehicle, forgets to write the logic for quality testing, which means he would not have this method at all. Let's say the second developer decided that it's okay that I have the body, which has the wheels, the paint job and all of that taken care of, and I have the engine and everything that goes that's required for the bike to run, and he forgets to write any logic to test the vehicle. And if you come here and try to display the vehicle or build the vehicle, the factory would still build it. Of course, it would say tested not okay, but if the developer didn't really bother to check whether it was tested or not, it would still be printed. This is the point we're trying to make. The factory or the main developer or the architect or the people who decide set certain rules. And that's why this vehicle interface is created. Because if the second developer was using the interface, which is the vehicle interface, and he forgot to write any logic to test the vehicle before he decides to display it or approve the vehicle, if he were to run the program, he would get a fatal error, which clearly says that one abstract method, that the motorbike contains one abstract method, and therefore it must be declared or it must be implemented. Abstract method is nothing but every method in an interface is an abstract method. We'll talk more about abstract methods and abstraction in a later video about PHP abstraction. Just know that we are getting a fatal error because the test vehicle, which was defined as a rule here, was not implemented in the motorbike. So if the second developer then realizes that he's done a mistake, he comes back here and he fixes his problem. He makes sure that whatever logic is required to ensure that the testing is taken care of is written here. He goes ahead and he makes sure we need to test the vehicle as well, and then he runs the code. We'll get the desired output. So again, this is one of the reasons why we need to use interfaces. Again, just to summarize real quick, an interface is basically a class which is defined by the keyword interface. It allows you to create certain functions without having the need to write any logic, but just telling other classes that implement them that it needs to have certain methods like the set engine, the set body, and the set test vehicle, so that anybody, anytime, anyone in the team or any other developer decides to do something similar to this, like let's say somebody wants to build a truck or any other vehicle, right? These are some of the fundamental things that needs to be done. Now, this does not limit the developer writing the class for motorbike from adding additional functionalities. There is no limitation to that. You can write as many functions as you want. You can have as many logic as you want. You can have accessories and so many other extra things that can be added, but it must have these three methods, and that is why we use the interface. Now, there is another use case for an interface. Now, let's say when building a car, I also need to have some information regarding the type of a car. For example, we can have sedan, SUV, a truck, a coupe, or a sports car, or any type of car. So now let's say I'm building a car and we have some additional information which changes depending on the type of car. Now let me give you an example. So let me go to the build car class. Let's say we have a property called cost, and I will call it 0. And let's say I have something that says car type, right? We'll just make it empty. Now let me write a construct here. Let me take the car type. Now let me say that this construct takes the car type as a parameter. Now I have two classes here. One is called a sedan and another is called as an SUV. Now in this example, let's take a look at the sedan class. It's a very simple class which has a property called car cost. And anytime we create this class, we pass the cost to the construct and we are updating the property car cost. And we have two methods. One would say that this is a sedan, and another method that would basically retrieve the cost of the sedan. Now let me use this class here. Like I said, in this example, we're trying to understand another use of interface. So before I explain that, let me just create this car type. The car type is going to be equal to a new sedan class, and I'm going to pass in the cost for it, which is going to be, let's say, $20,000. And as soon as I run this, what it does is it sets the cost. It gets the cost, which is $20,000. It sets the car cost, and anytime we use these two methods, get type name and get cost, we'll get these two information. Now this car type object, I'm going to pass it to the build car class. So if I go to the build car class, I'm getting the car type here. Now since this car type is of the type class sedan, I can type hint this. Now, if you do not know what type hint is, I suggest you take a look at it. Type hinting is basically where anytime we have a certain parameter, we're telling the program as to what type of parameter it is. Now, this car type is an object. It's an object of the class sedan. So we just need to say that this is going to be the class sedan. And all we need to do here is we'll take the property cost of this class. We're going to say cost, and this is going to be equal to the object car type, which is the object of the type sedan, and say let's get the type cost. And let's also say that this property car type equals the object car type get type name. I hope it's not confusing. I will just give a quick overview of what I did here. So basically what I'm trying to do here is, while I'm building a car, I'm also trying to send some additional information about what type of car it is. And here I'm saying that the type of car is a sedan, and I'm sending the cost is $20,000 to this class sedan so that it sets the necessary properties so that I can obtain them in this object. So back to this, I could probably add in a little extra information here. And I could probably say cost of the car is $this cost, and the type of the car is equal to $this, let's say car type. So let me go ahead and print this and see what happens. Syntax error, unexpected equal to on line 41. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, this should fix it. There we go. I'll just add in some space here so that it's easier to read. There you go. Now we have a new line here, and it clearly says that this car costs $20,000 and it's of the type sedan, where it says this is a sedan. Cool. Now let's say I wanted to create a different kind of a car. Let's say an SUV. So again, I have a class here that says SUV. It has the same structure as a sedan. Of course, I can have different methods. All it does is, again, it takes the value of the car, it sets the property as car cost, and it has the two methods. It says get type name and get type cost, and it would basically print and return the same thing. So let me change this to SUV. And of course, SUV is going to be a little more expensive. I'm going to say $30,000, and I'm going to pass the car type here, and hopefully I get the desired output, which is 30,000 here, and also something that says this is an SUV. I'm going to reload the page, and I'm getting an error. Just as I expected, I see an error here which says argument 1 passed to build car construct must be an instance of sedan, but instance of SUV is given. This is expected. The reason we are getting this error is because in the build car construct, when I'm sending this car type, I'm telling that the car type is going to be of the class sedan. But in the second attempt, I'm actually passing a different class. I'm passing SUV. So then for me to make this work, I would now have to change this to SUV. Let me reload this page. There you go. It's working fine. So now it says the cost is $30,000 and that this is an SUV. So I hope you can see what the problem here is. The problem here is that we are defining that the car type needs to be of a certain class. So if we decide to change the type of car that our program needs to build, we need to again change the entire code. Now, this is not the right way. So in order to fix this, we can use interfaces. So what we would do is, if you take the class sedan and the class SUV, we can say that both these classes implement a certain interface. Now let me show you another interface that we have here. I have another interface created called as car types. Again, if you look at it, it just says interface, which is a keyword that is required, and it says that it has two methods, right? Again, these are two rules which I've already implemented here, which says get type name and get cost. I have the same thing here. Now all I need to do is I can say that sedan implements car types and SUV also implements car types. Now by adding these two lines, by saying that both sedan and SUV implements the same interface, we're essentially grouping these two classes to the same interface. And so now we can go to the build car and say the car type that we're going to send, we're not going to say whether it's an SUV or a sedan or any other type we suddenly decide to add to our program. All we're going to say is that they are all part of an interface which is called as car types. So this way, what we're saying is whatever type of car we send in the construct, we need not tell you what class it is. We are just going to tell what interface that it implements. So basically this interface says that all these classes which implement them are grouped under this interface. So now if I come back to this code, if I run this, it will work just fine. Now if I decide to change this to sedan, and let's say, let's say this is a cheap sedan and it's just $10,000, I don't have to go back and change the code inside build car. All I'm going to do is I'm going to reload the page, and you can see that it's changed. It says $10,000 and that this is a sedan. So that is another very cool use of interface. Another thing I forgot to mention was that a single class can implement multiple interfaces. So let's say I was here, and if I say that my class motorbike has to implement vehicle interface and also car types, it doesn't make sense. But I can certainly have this setup. But when I do this, I need to make sure that I also follow the rule set by car types, which I think is something like, I'm sorry, function get type name and public function get type cost. Public function get type cost, and it would work just fine. So that is it. I hope we have a better understanding of interfaces. Just to summarize what it is interface is basically a set of rules or a set of methods that we can use in our programs, so that anytime anybody wants to use functionalities which are similar to that, we can implement that interface so that we do not miss any of the important steps, or we do not miss any of the rules that are defined by a senior developer or an architect or a designer, so that we have a standard that is followed. Also, we saw that using interfaces, you can also group several classes, so we have no problem when we are type hinting. Again, type hinting, real quick, is just telling a program or just telling a method that whatever parameter they're getting, it is of a certain type. Well, that is it, guys. I hope now we have a better understanding of interfaces. And if you like the video, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, or if there is a topic you want me to cover, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching.